Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're asking, how did a funding freeze, something happening right here on Earth, cause the world to miss maybe the most critical observation window for a visitor from deep space?
Yeah, that is really the core question, isn't it? It's pretty frustrating. We're diving into the story of Three-Eyed Atlas. This was a celestial object NASA's JPL, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, was tracking very closely.
Right.
Until, well, the official updates just vanished, right when everyone needed them most.
So our mission here is to understand the sources, really get into how this specific clash happened. Celestial mechanics, the universe moving versus government operations just stopping.
Exactly. We're looking at how a U.S. government shutdown created this huge gap. A gap in scientific knowledge, sure, but also in public transparency.
And the tension is just so clear, isn't it? The universe doesn't wait around, but sometimes the agencies watching it, well, they have to.
It really was like a bureaucratic black hole, you could say. And it basically swallowed critical data right when it mattered.
Okay, let's break this down then. First, the object itself. Three-Eyed Atlas. What was it, just for context?
Right, so Three-Eyed Atlas, it's an interstellar object, maybe a comet, maybe something else, but definitely from outside our solar system. It had captured a lot of scientific interest. And JPL, they were doing their job, releasing regular position data, updates for global observers, public databases, all through early October.
Okay, standard procedure so far.
Yes, exactly. Routine tracking, which is key because these things, they can move fast. You need continuous monitoring, constant adjustments to the trajectory.
But then mid-October hit.
Mid-October changed everything. Three-Eyed Atlas was entering what astronomers considered a really key observation phase, a crucial window.
And right at that moment, the updates just stopped.
Completely stopped.
Yeah.
Mid-month. And initially, there was no official word, no explanation given out to the public or, international partners. Just silence.
Wow. And what made that timing so critical? You mentioned a key observation phase.
Well, this is where it gets scientifically damaging. Avi Loeb, who's a key figure in the sources we looked at, he pointed out that Three-Eyed Atlas was just about to enter solar alignment.
Solar alignment. Okay, what does that mean practically?
Practically, it means, from our viewpoint here on Earth, the object passes behind the sun. It's like, poof, it disappears into the sun's glare. It becomes almost impossible to see for weeks.
So there was this limited final chance to get good data before it was effectively hidden.
Exactly.
And that's precisely when the official data feed went dark.
That's it, a final window slamming shut, not because of physics, but because of policy.
Which leads us straight to the obvious question. If the science was so urgent, what on earth literally could stop the observations? That takes us to the political blackout, doesn't it?
It does. The root cause wasn't like a telescope breaking or a technical glitch. It was policy. The communication silence, we know now, started very shortly after parts of the U.S. government, NASA included, got hit by funding freezes.
The shutdown.
Right, linked directly to the federal shutdown that was happening at the time.
So what exactly got suspended? I mean, if tracking was already happening, couldn't someone just, unofficially send out the coordinates, keep things going?
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But the freeze was apparently quite comprehensive. It hit public-facing systems hard. And crucially, NASA's main near-Earth object portal, which is, the go-to official source for tracking data, that was temporarily suspended.
Okay, so the main public channel was down.
Which means if you're an astronomer anywhere in the world relying on those official centralized data feeds, your primary lifeline just vanished overnight.
But what about internal stuff? Why did stopping public outreach mean total silence? Surely the scientists inside NASA were still tracking it.
That's the really frustrating part. Based on what came out later about the internal mechanics, the shutdown protocols apparently mandated a hard cut on all non-essential outreach and communication.
Non-essential. Tracking a unique interstellar object seems pretty essential.
You'd think. But under the rules, it wasn't just about, say, press releases. It seems the system for sharing any data externally, even with scientific partners, was paused. So the data might have been flowing inside NASA, but the pipe going outwards was shut off. No public alerts, no updates, no coordination.
A forced silence. Wow, that just sounds like a recipe for confusion, maybe even panic. What was the immediate fallout? How did observers react?
Well, the impact was immediate, yeah. Scientists like Avi Loeb, who needed those official trajectory updates to, book telescope time, coordinate their own observations, they were suddenly working with outdated info, flying blind, essentially. Loeb himself called the timing unfortunate, which sounds like quite an understatement.
Unfortunate. And of course, nature abhors a vacuum, and so does the internet. When the official channels go dark.
Oh, yeah. An information vacuum gets filled, all right. And quickly, there was an explosion of online theories about Three-Eye Atlas.
What kind of theories?
Because there was no solid data to anchor the discussion, people started speculating wildly. Some claims were that Three-Eye Atlas had, radically changed its orbit. Others were even more dramatic, suggesting it had just vanished entirely. Vanished. Poof. Gone. The public interest was already high, and the mystery just fueled all this speculation.
And this is where it gets almost darkly funny, isn't it? You have NASA, one of the world's most advanced space tracking organizations, forced into silence.
Right.
And who steps up?
It's incredible. Amateur astronomers, citizen scientists, people with telescopes in their backyards, basically. They became the only reliable source, or at least the only active source, of tracking information during that blackout period.
So they were patching it together themselves.
Yeah, collaborating online, sharing observations, trying to piece together the trajectory when the official systems were just locked down tight. It says a lot about their dedication, definitely. But it also really highlights how fragile things can be when scientific communication depends so heavily on, political stability.
That fragility, that failure to communicate, it definitely sparked some strong reactions. Avi Loeb, you mentioned him earlier. He didn't mince words, did he?
No, he did not. He was clearly furious. He called NASA's mandated silence, and I'm quoting here, the biggest failure of scientific transparency in recent years. And he didn't stop there. He flat out called it a preventable failure.
A preventable failure? That's a heavy charge. What was his main argument? Why was just going silent so damaging, beyond the obvious lack of data?
His core point was about trust and integrity. He argued that both the integrity of the scientific data and public confidence were severely damaged by the silence.
How so?
Well, he stressed that even minimal communication, just, confirming the latest coordinates, something simple could have kept the global observation effort on track. It could have preserved data integrity, but maybe more importantly, it would have maintained public trust.
Ah, right, because when a major agency suddenly goes completely dark about a high-profile object.
Exactly. It doesn't scream budget cut. To the public, it can look like something's being hidden. It fuels conspiracy theories, makes it seem like maybe there was something weird happening that they didn't want us to see.
Yeah, I can see that. So the whole episode became this kind of object lesson, a cautionary tale.
A widely shared cautionary tale, about how political decisions, totally separate from the actual science, can just paralyze important research efforts around the world.
And Loeb had that quote that really summed it up.
He did. It perfectly captures the stakes. He said, The universe doesn't wait for governments to reopen. It keeps moving. And sometimes we miss the moment.
We miss the moment. Oof. So connecting this to the aftermath, what happened when the shutdown ended? When the government reopened, did NASA jump back in?
Well, once NASA operations got back to normal, it was a very quiet restoration. The agency did eventually restore access to the data.
Okay. So the data wasn't lost forever.
Not the data collected during the shutdown, no. They provided access to the archived orbital data, basically handing over the information that had been gathered internally while they were silent externally.
But, and this feels crucial, what about the institutional response? Did they explain the silence? Apologize for the, global chaos and speculation they caused?
According to the sources we have, no. There was no retroactive explanation offered for why the communication stopped. No apology. They just sort of resumed normal operations and turned the data feeds back on.
Wow. Just back to business.
Pretty much.
And that lack of acknowledgement combined with the very real disruption everyone experienced, that must have fueled calls for change.
Absolutely. People didn't just shrug this off as a minor inconvenience. Loeb and others in the scientific community, they started demanding new policies.
Policies to prevent this specific problem again.
Exactly. Policies designed to ensure that essential scientific communications, especially for things like potentially hazardous objects or unique high-profile visitors like Three-Eye Ats, are formally classified as essential work.
Meaning they'd have to stay active even during a shutdown.
That's the goal, to keep those critical data streams flowing, regardless of what's happening with government funding battles.
So when we try to synthesize all this for you, the listener, what really stands out is this kind of perfect storm, right? You have this incredibly interesting, fast-moving object from interstellar space.
Right. Peak scientific interest.
Arriving just as a major government shutdown hits. And the result, Politics basically hits mute on the world's main source of information about it, leaving everyone scrambling, relying on amateurs right at the most crucial moment.
Yeah, it's such a stark lesson in the need for transparency, isn't it? The moment that official information gets choked off, the immediate result is, well, rumors fly, scientific momentum gets lost, and public trust takes a hit. The silence itself was the real failure here.
And that silence, it potentially carried a huge, unquantifiable scientific cost. We mentioned the wild speculation online. Was it artificial? Was it doing something unexpected? Whatever the reality of 3I8less was, this administrative failure meant scientists literally missed the moment.
They missed that critical window. The closest approach, observations, the data before solar alignment, gone.
Or at least the official coordinated data collection was severely hampered.
Severely hampered, yes. We know the political failure cost valuable observation time during that key period. So the ultimate question that just hangs there is, what did we lose? What knowledge, what potential insights about this interstellar visitor were permanently lost simply because a funding bill didn't pass on time?
What did we fail to see? Something that might never come back our way again.
Exactly.
It's definitely something for you to think about, these very earthbound limits we sometimes place on our own ability to understand the wider cosmos. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Thank you.